It's the Daily Drama Podcast with Stephen Bradford, presented by dailydrama.com, your one-stop shop for soap, news, and etc. And speaking of
breaking news,
I mean, what better day to represent our great new soap website than having the breaking news of Mr. Jonathan Jackson coming back to General Hospital. Hey, buddy.
Hey, thank you both.
Aren't we lucky?
Crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
okay, so let me get into this, Brad.
Take it away, buddy.
Let me get into this. So when was the last time that you were on the show?
Well, I was trying to think about that. And because, when Tony was leaving, I came back for about 4 episodes. And I think that was 2015, if I remember correctly.
And that was with Frank?
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, that was a whirlwind because I think I came in for 2 days and we shot, I don't know, 150 pages or something crazy like that.
Well,
and it was
that's just a Tuesday now, bro.
That's just that's how it is. That's how it is now, buddy. Be prepared.
That's what I've heard. But yeah, and it was a lot of heavy stuff with Tony leaving, but it was awesome. I mean, I loved it. I was really grateful to be able to do that. So I mean, gosh, I can't believe that's been like 9 years even.
Yeah,
since.
and that was just a couple days, but before that was when?
It was 2011, end of 2012.
Yeah, so I left in 2012. You were in 2011. That's awesome.
And
I mean, that's a long time.
12 years.
And he was going to Ireland, right? I was trying to remember this because I remember Siobhan.
Lucky was
going to Ireland. I remember the actress that played Siobhan, and like and I forget, did you go together or what was the you probably don't remember, but
I don't, but I don't think so. Well, maybe actually. I honestly don't remember. But what's funny about that is that, Lucky went to Ireland and then I moved to Ireland with my family in 2020.
Oh, that's funny. And actually, people still think you're there, by the way, because I always see some things on Instagram like, oh, it's Jonathan's not coming back. He lives in Ireland. I'm like, well, that's not the case yet.
Yeah.
So.
They were confusing Lucky, I think, with me.
Yeah, Lucky.
Anyway, so yeah, it was a bit of life imitating art there. So we're kind of both coming back from Ireland.
Yeah, well, I mean, the last time we checked in with you was around that time, or maybe just before you were about to go to Ireland. It might have been 2019 or so. Yeah. So obviously people know that you did that little show called Nashville. And also, like, if they follow you on Instagram, they've seen that a lot of that world is still a part of what you do and your music and even recently. Yeah, right. You guys are still doing concerts?
Yeah, we went to the UK for a reunion tour. I think it was last October. And it was, it was a bit, we didn't really know what it was going to be like because it at that point it had been, I don't know, 5 years or so since the show had been off the air. And we were just blown away that the fans and the connection with the audience was still there. And it was so much fun. We had a blast.
Well, it helps when you guys are awesome too, though.
Well, that's very kind.
You know what I mean? I mean, honestly, you guys are all great musicians and performers and singers. And so I know you guys bring a show, but that is pretty amazing to have that fan base. It's so interesting how the show Nashville would have such a appeal overseas. I mean, it makes sense, but to 5 years later to be able to go still sell out, arenas and add on shows, you're just like, what is going on here?
It's crazy. Yeah.
What is the connection between like the Ireland, England, or the UK and country music? Was it born out of, like, I know a lot of countries love American culture, and what's more American culture than country music, but like what is the connection there?
Well, I mean, it's in my mind, it's kind of almost a circular thing because country music, a lot of it came from that part of the world, from Ireland and
Isn't
Scotland.
that like folk music? Isn't it kind of the
like the
country?
like trad music is not dissimilar, like some of like the guitar stuff. The sounds.
Bluegrass and it's all there, and over the years, it's been kind of fun to travel over there and go to certain pubs, and they would have very much like what you see in Nashville, which is like, people in a circle with guitars singing their songs. And once in a while they would really do the traditional folk music, and you would kind of get chills and go, this is so wild. This feels like the original Nashville.
Interesting.
Like, and so then, we're doing country music and Americana and all this kind of stuff, and it's being exported back to them, and they love it, and they feel like, oh, this is America, this is where Elvis and Roy Orbison and all of these artists came from. So there is a deep connection there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
So like, I guess we should talk a little bit about,
We should right now.
what did did you set this in motion? Did you ever expect that you'd come back? Like, I mean, without, I don't know if there's any
Yeah.
confidences. I don't want to, I'm not sure how behind the scenes you can tell us, but what was the synthesis of this?
Yeah, well, it's my relationship with General Hospital over the years, from my perspective, is it's just kind of always there. I mean, even when I left the show in, I think it was 1999, I always had the intention of, coming back. It always felt like this is just a very special place. And, growing up there, working with Tony and Jeannie, it was never in my mind that, okay, I'm leaving and I'm never gonna, return. I thought I really want to figure out a way to come back. And then I was able to do that in 2010 for a couple years. And so, even working with Frank in 2015, we've kept in contact here and there. And then, when Steve came back, I was super excited for him and for the show and everything. So I was, hearing a lot of great things about what was going on there. And it just kind of happened organically like that. It just felt like the right time. And, it was, yeah, it all came together. And, there had been other times throughout the years where something like this almost happened, but it just wasn't quite the right time for various reasons. Everything fell into place. It was like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
So,
from what I know about this situation here, because there were other times where it was kind of false start. Hey, let's
yeah,
do it. Hey, then it doesn't work for whatever myriad of
yeah,
reasons, right? So this one just kind of just went right, smooth sailing as it can go.
yeah,
Um, but obviously, the fans know, and Brad knows that Jonathan and I are close, and he's heard all about my experience coming back,
yeah,
and I'm having an amazing time, probably the best time of my life there, which is awesome, and I feel like there's a great energy in the show now. And I know you do have a big cheerleader in Jeannie Francis, by the way, because
cool.
because she'd be like, "Hey, let's get Jonathan. Can Jonathan come back?
Yeah,
Can we
Amazing.
get him back?" I go, "You're so sweet. Like, go talk to Frank." Like,
Right.
and I
yeah,
know she's been a huge cheerleader, and obviously she's an amazing woman and just awesome. So I'm excited. I'm excited as a fan of just of being on the show and a fan of General Hospital overall. I'm excited for you and Jeannie to work together again.
Mm.
I'm excited about that. So
thank you. Yeah,
yeah.
well, and all, I mean, all of that really was, part of it. The fact that Jeannie is there,
Does it make
and
it easier that she's still there?
oh no, I mean, that honestly, that has a huge part in it for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I think about just the practicalities of coming back and reprising the role and all of that. In when I came back in 2010, it was incredible, to get to work with Tony again after all those years.
Yeah.
And that it really is such I don't want to sound sort of like corny or sentimental, but it's a very special thing about this medium, that
Mm.
you can work with someone when you're 11 to 17 years old, and then work with them again when you're 28, And now, but Jeannie wasn't really there for those couple years. And I always felt like, man, I wish, I got to work with her very briefly in 2015 in those few episodes. But I always thought, man, I would love to be able to really get to work with her again. So that definitely came into play. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm looking forward to that because they could really dive into that,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that hasn't, we haven't really been able to have any kind of substantial story together since I was 17, 18
Yeah.
years old, so it's wild.
I don't now. There's no Lulu there. Obviously, there's no Nicholas there. Is there any other? Are you will Lucky be the only next generation of Spencer
He
that's
probably
there?
knows less than I do.
I know you're right. I'm right.
Yes.
Sorry.
I don't know
Sorry.
if that's possible.
It's just me
I'm with
speculating.
you.
It's just me thinking through things here.
Well,
Yeah.
what was the question though?
Yeah. No, I think you'll be only
Oh, oh,
her only
oh,
heir. That's not the word.
Family?
Her
only
only.
family. I think that might be correct, but again, I don't know. I
Yeah.
did have somebody say something like that to me recently, that there isn't a lot of sort of family surrounding Laura right now. So
Yeah.
that could be the case.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and it's also um, interesting for me, and this happened to me in 2010 because I'd been away from the show, I think, for probably about 10 years at that time. So I'm coming back to it in a similar sense. I don't really know. I'll have a lot of uh, catching up to do with all of that. Um, but I don't know why I kind of enjoy that. I kind of because I feel I don't really have any expectations. I'm just walking in there, and also all the life experience. I say this to my kids all the time, and I was doing this Theoria film school the last couple of years and talking to young actors and artists. And one of the things that I would try to emphasize is how important it is for artists to not focus on acting all the time, but like focus on life, read great novels, watch incredible films, try to travel if you can. Like all this kind of stuff informs your work. So I guess what I'm saying is having this kind of time away and then coming back, it'll be interesting because I don't know a lot of the details of the stories or anything what's going on, but I feel like I'm going to be able to bring the last, however many years, 10 years of my life, kind of into the work for whatever that's worth. Yeah.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, go ahead. No, because I was going to ask about story, but go ahead, Brad.
But
Finish
character-wise,
Mhm.
he has been away from Port Charles for as long as you've been away from Port Charles, or I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
so
Yeah.
I can't imagine anyone will expect you to step right in and like that. That makes it more
Yeah.
interesting, right? Like
Yeah.
the peeling away of, well, where has Lucky been? What has he been doing? What kind of person is he now? Like that
Right.
allows for no one can say, oh, Lucky wouldn't do that,
Yeah.
because who
Yeah.
knows what Lucky
Yeah.
would do now. And so like
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
cool place to start from, where you have familiarity with relationships like that. We always talk about that's the beauty of the genre, right? Is like
Yeah.
you can walk into a scene with an actor that you've had that kind of history with and know how you feel about them, and that
Right.
is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I
Yes.
mean, I think that's where,
Yeah.
bringing someone like you back, Jonathan, is smart for the show in the sense that, now with the new head writers and Elizabeth Cordy, who knows you very well, now you have that platform of this backstory that can be literally incredible.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
I mean, there's a lot.
Sure.
There's a lot,
Yeah.
and I hope you get to talk to some people because I
Yeah.
know from an artistic standpoint that would probably benefit you.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely.
but obviously you probably don't know anything yet. But are you going to be able? You think music would be a part of this at all? Would you want it to be, or would you be open to it?
Yeah, I would be open to it, for sure. Yeah, I mean, and there's precedent for it, not only with the show in general, but even with Lucky, in the past. There have been certain moments where that's been there. So, Yeah, I mean, I'd be completely open to that. It'd be interesting to kind of see how that would work. But I think it could be cool. Yeah.
Is he still a cop?
That,
You don't
well,
know.
that's a good question.
Yeah, well, because I mean, you know,
But
the
I really like the way you express that, though. It's true. I think that there's sort of the maybe the like the paradox of the deep relationships and history, but also this amount of time that's passed where it's like everything gets to kind of be reimagined, both for the performers, the writers, and for the audience. You know,
Yeah,
it's
it's
like
so cool. Like you don't get this. You don't get to
no,
have all that stuff built in and just walk right back in a set
yeah,
with people that you've had relationships with, and it's already there. And now
yeah,
we can tell a story on top of that.
well, and yet, yeah, there's like a freedom there, right? You're
It's
not,
yeah,
amazing.
you have all those questions answered, which is some of the homework that we do before, and
yeah.
and then until you get those questions answers, often you don't feel the freedom. But
Well, that's the
uh,
problem with a new character coming on
right, for
Right.
sure.
because you have to explain everything, and everybody has to talk about this character
Mhm.
for 6 months, and then you finally start maybe caring about the character.
Right.
But
Right.
now there's instant, like because obviously you're lucky, but also the Spencers and also the history of the show, all these things, man. I'm
Yeah.
super excited. So,
I
That's
you know,
awesome.
technically, like, I mean, you obviously did the single camera show for a bit. I know you just did that. You had a part in the movie, the Unsung Hero movie. So you've done
Yeah.
some. So you've had some other disciplines besides daytime in the last 10 years. I mean,
Hmm.
like, how you feeling about your page count stuff? Like how like
I
technically,
mean,
like I'm not worried. I'm just saying, like.
well, maybe you should be.
yeah,
I would be. I think any sane person would be a little worried. I mean, I don't know. That's one of the things I think it's probably good that I did come back in 2015 because I already noticed how different it was
Sure.
from 2012 to 2015. Like there was a massive kind of shift in the pace and how things were moving. Um, and so yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, it's very I look back on it and I go, how I still look at it with, what people do. And I go, how do they do this? Like, how do people do this? And so it's one of those things where it feels crazy until you're doing it. And
Of
then you're
course.
just in it. And it's just like one day at a time, kind of a thing. So, and it's very much, I imagine, similar to almost like what, athletes go through. There's a certain kind of stamina and muscle memory and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure I'm going to have the whole gamut of the experience,
yeah,
put it
Sure.
that way.
you will be thrown into the lion's den, buddy.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Creatively over the last 8 to 10 years,
Mhm.
doing, obviously having a serial character in Nashville where but like still have you enjoyed the time that you get with that, with single camera stuff? Like creatively, how is that affected coming, because obviously coming from daytime, and it was, you didn't do as much as we do now, but still, um, having multiple take shots at it, having,
Right.
you know, being able to maybe find your choice when you get
Yeah.
there versus having to bring it up with you. Like, I mean, I'm sure you did both, but like
Yeah.
creatively, like how are you? I know you're excited to come back, but like in terms of,
Yeah.
do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, I'm grateful that working in multiple mediums began at a young age. So even when I started GH in '93, very shortly after I was doing, like Camp Nowhere and Deep End of the Ocean, and while I was on the show,
that's right,
they
that's
they
right.
were very kind to kind of, work the schedules where I could do films and stay on the show. Um, so the single camera thing was there with me, and then I would, it was crazy. Like sometimes I look back and go, how in the world? Oftentimes I would shoot Tuesday through Saturday on a film, have my entire week's worth of work on GH on Monday,
Mm.
and then go back to the film Tuesday through Saturday.
At
So
what age?
at like my whole teenage years, like,
Yeah, right.
12 to 18 pretty much. And, so I was actually working in both mediums simultaneously. And
Yeah.
so what that did was it kind of broke down. Well, it did a couple things. It was like I I learned a lot about what the differences are between those, but it also became so intuitive that it almost became irrelevant. Um, but I have my preferences and also kind of habits that have developed. So, for instance, when you work, as you guys know, when you work on a show like General Hospital, there's a discipline to your preparation that has to be there. I mean, you can't function unless it's there, right? So then when you go into a film or, something like Nashville, single camera type stuff, I would still show up, I'd show up without my script in my hand, like I'm off book
Sure.
and that's it. So, and I would want, sometimes they would want to do all these takes. I'm like,
We
three
got it.
takes, we
We got
got
it.
it.
We got it.
I'm not going to spend all that time trying to figure this out. I've already done that and I'm
Yeah.
ready to rock and roll. Like, let's do this thing. So
Yeah.
now I will say that in 2015, it was like that pendulum was even farther. It was like, I think we block all these scenes and rehearse, and like 2 seconds later, it's like, okay, here we go. And that was, I used to have 90 seconds and now it's like
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
So even that little condensed thing, it was shocking to me. I remember kind of looking around going like, wow, okay, this is happening. This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we would always want maybe a few more minutes to kind of figure it out. But that's also part of the fun of it. I mean, honestly, there's the other thing. I'm sorry, I'm rambling now. The
No,
other
this
thing
is
that
what we're here for.
yeah, the other thing that I like about the process on a show like General Hospital is um, you get put in situations where it's like it can start to help you as an actor because
100%.
you don't have time, and you just have to trust, and you just have to be in the moment, and you have to use your exhaustion and use the humanity in the work. And sometimes when you're on a film, you've been sitting there for 6 hours and you could tense up,
Mm.
or you've been off for 10 days and then you're, oh, now here's your big scene. Well, General Hospital is like, you're like an athlete who's just in it.
Yeah.
And so you kind of, your body and your mind doesn't have to work as hard to relax because you don't have the option to tense up. It's like you've already been pushed past that point. So there is a benefit to the exhaustion sometimes, I
Yeah,
think.
it's interesting too you say that because I feel like because we do so much, it's easier to be present and in the moment,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Than having like, okay, we're walking to set now, get in the
Yeah.
golf cart, go drive, make sure you stop by wardrobe.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you get to the set. And then, yeah, they have their process there that you can definitely start to zone in,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just like what you said, there's not a lot of, you don't have to think a lot of times in these scenes because we've had these discussions, Bradford,
Yeah.
and I had one with Frank a couple weeks ago where he gave me a nice compliment on a scene, and it was literally a scene I had no idea what was going to happen. I had no idea what was
Yeah.
going on. I had
Sure.
no
Right.
idea. I just knew my lines, and
Yeah.
I was just like, I get
Yeah.
here we go. Like this
Yeah.
is it, and there's something awesome about that. There's something
Yeah.
authentic about it. There's something
Yeah.
real about it. There's
True.
something
Yeah.
instinctual about it where it's not
Yeah.
planned, where it's not,
Mhm.
and I'm grateful that we get to do that in this medium
Yeah.
because I'm telling you right now, as good as that scene came out, it probably wouldn't have came out that good if I had more time to prep and more time to run it and more time to worry about it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's true.
Wild ride, buddy.
Oh
Get
yeah.
ready.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I think about, like, I was just having this image when you were talking about that, Steve, of like, when you are in the golf cart on a set and you walk into a set and everyone is like, everything is kind of built around you and the lighting and everything. It's what I love about our set is when we walk on our set, you can just focus on your scene partner. You don't have to worry about your angle. You don't have to worry about the lens. You don't have to worry about, oh, is my face in the right thing for the lens? I like there's something about, and you've done so much more in that genre, so maybe you have found your freedom in that, and those things are so normal to you that you don't even see that anymore. But boy, when you get on our set, the cameras are there's a threshold. The cameras don't come over that threshold most of the time,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
that's our space, that's our play space,
Mhm.
and really you can just focus it on your partner and not think about some of the technical elements, and
Yes.
that is really cool.
You're so right. It really is. It's and that again is kind of a very unique and a special part of the whole thing. And yeah, I mean it's the
John,
other
but hold on one
yeah
second. Let me just,
yeah
because Bradford made a great point, because
yeah
how free are you? Are you as free? Well, this would be a good question the next time we get on here. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no
I,
no no it's good.
the freedom, because the freedom that someone who's a film actor or has done, 100 episodes of Nashville, were you as free, or was there still a piece of you that would think about the technicality of being on the exact mark? Because I would be so in my head.
Yeah.
Were
Yeah,
you free, or were you just trusting that they're going to get it? Or did you think, oh, if I move this way, I'm out of focus and we're screwed?
yeah, it's a great question. There's a strange kind of paradox for me when it comes to that. And there is a different mentality that happens when I'm working in uh, that kind of a set. And I remember this as a kid. I mean, I remember 12 years old working on Camp Nowhere, and that was really the first time I was learning about all of that stuff. And um, I've always, for some reason, approached work this way, and I think most of the time people like it. Maybe it rubs people the wrong way sometimes, but I just there are some actors that don't want to be bothered with anything technical because they think it's like I am just doing my performance and but I've always kind of been the opposite. I even when I'm acting in the particularly in the film world, the more I understand what the camera's doing, the better. So I'm always talking to the cameraman, the cinematographer, and saying, "What size are you? Where am I out of frame? I want to know all that stuff so that I can then feel more free."
Sure.
So, because I've found when I don't ask those questions, I'll do something that ruins the shot. And I was like, man, that was a good take. If only I'd have known.
Sure. Yeah.
And sometimes people would come up and they'd say, no, no, no. Or like the audio person, the boom operator, or someone would, come in and say something to me because it's a technical thing. And sometimes a director would say, hey, don't bother them with that. And I appreciate that instinct. However, I'm kind of like, no, I want to know that because
Once
I
you
want to do this. I want to do this in 3 takes and
you
be
want to
done.
know your boundaries, right? There's freedom within
Yeah.
boundaries. We say this, in parenting.
Yes.
Yep.
Like, but no,
Yes.
once you know your boundaries, then you know your play space. And
Yes.
if you
Yeah.
don't know your
Yes.
play space, then you can be like, oh gosh, I like your instinct, and then you can recoil from an instinct thinking, oh gosh, maybe that's wrong, or maybe that, like,
Yeah. And
Yes.
I'm asking those questions more now. And I'm very
Yeah.
aware of where the camera is and usually what the shots are and stuff. But I'm always
Yeah.
like, hey, what's the opener? Who's got the opener?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where is it? Where are we
Yes.
going right now? Where's
Yeah.
the second shot? Who's got the second
Exactly.
shot? Right.
Yeah.
And then I'm like,
Yeah.
always there's, Bruce usually has me, the camera guy, no,
Hmm.
number one camera, whatever. And I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
are we good? Are we clear here? Are we good? Especially if
Yes.
it's emotional stuff. Cause I do
Well,
not want to do emotional things
yeah.
multiple
Exactly.
times
Yes.
anyway. But
Yeah.
obviously we will, but yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. I love, like Bradford, you said, I always say there's freedom in the structure. If we know what the structure
Yeah.
is, we can be free,
right.
you know?
Exactly. But just to kind of go back to the larger sort of context of it in terms of the freedom that exists within a show like General Hospital is the incredible thing about what you were saying, where the cameras they don't cross that threshold. That's like what other medium? It's like this incredible amalgamation between film and theater. That's kind of the way I look at it. It's something in between where all the actors, or let's say if there's two people in the scene, each person gets their close-up simultaneously.
Yeah.
And which means you don't have to, be off the camera with your head by the lens and trying to, help the other person like you have to do in film. Now, I will say there is kind of an art to that whole thing too, which I love.
Sure.
But it is a very different process than being able to just kind of just let it go. All the performers in the scene just go. And all these camera people are so talented that they can capture and move and zoom, and they're live editing. I mean, it's crazy. It's wild.
It really is amazing. It is.
Yeah.
But and the fact that you're right on that close up, when the fact that they can get both sides of it, and you can have, I would venture to say, staring into someone's eyes, not when they're smeared up against a camera, is more, well, it's certainly more natural. I mean, we're artists, we can fudge anything, but to not have to fudge it is wonderful.
And there's also, I think, more of a almost like a cathartic immediacy. Well, okay, again, back to the theater thing. So that's probably the most immediate, right? Because you're with an audience, and whatever's happening there, whether it's music or theater or whatever, you get the sort of instant gratification of the moment. And then it's gone, and it never happens again. And there's something kind of beautiful about that. With film, even if you feel like you're doing something that you might, feel good about, you really have no clue for a year, how it's going to edit and how it's going to work. And so
kind of like being on Days of Our Lives, but different.
Well, he's saying that because I'm still airing on Days of Our Lives, and I finished taping in December. So you never know.
But this is like the scene is done on General Hospital. Like the scene is done. Each actor, had the performance that it was, and you kind of go, yeah, like that, we did it. And now it exists. And similar to theater, it's going to air once, and nearly that's it. It's gone. And there's something kind of cool about that.
Right. Because you don't have to self-flagellate for like the show that you didn't go the way you wanted to, because it's gone.
Well, and I'll tell you something, honestly, that was something I appreciated so much as a young person, starting at 11 years old. I used that as training. I would watch every scene I did simply to learn, like how did it feel, and then how did it look. And I would realize that oh gosh, I thought that felt big, and it didn't come across that way, or I thought so perception and what you're doing is one of the hardest things, I think, as an actor. But I remember thinking, all the time in my teenage years going, I'm going to take a risk because it's only going to air once. So I'm going to try this. And it gave me the freedom to try things and go places that you kind of, I mean, where else can you do that other than, I guess.
And excuse me, and you had Tony Geary with you. Going, hey brother, you're safe. Like you can't be safer in acting than right now.
Yes, and they were doing improv too. Tony was doing improv, Jeannie was, there, and so I, learned that from them, and the beauty of spontaneity and saving things for when we're actually shooting, not for the rehearsal, so you can surprise the other actor.
Wow, that's cool.
I learned that from them early on, and I have a lot of fun memories with that as well. But that's a cool thing too, because when you're doing film, it's you can beat a scene to death. You can do it 50 times, right?
Right.
But you could have an idea and go, I'm just not going to do this till we film it on GH. And then it can completely kind of take the other performer off guard in a hopefully good way.
Right.
And something can happen and you don't have to do it another 30 times. It's like, hey, that's it. It's great.
We got it.
If they catch it.
If they catch it.
Well, yes, if they catch it. That's true.
That's awesome, man.
Well,
but
it is
so good at what they do. Usually they do catch it.
Yeah, no, they're so good at it. Yeah, for sure. But this guy's been teaching film school.
I
He's
know.
been doing movies. He's been writing books. Now he's recording new music. He's travels. He speaks. So many things. So
How cool to have you as part of our ensemble again.
amazing, man.
Thank you.
Like, you know,
Feels
as Steve has experienced being a different person along different steps of the way,
Yeah.
being then of course an additive part of the ensemble, which we are. Like as you were talking about those things you were talking about, I was like, how cool for the members of our cast that haven't worked with you yet or haven't worked with you in a long time to experience and learn from what you're talking about. And like, it's so cool that you learned at a young age. Now you're back and you're teaching,
Well,
if you will, you know,
Well,
and that's cool.
that's very kind of you. And one of the things that I would say that I learned from Tony and Jeannie, and you know, having worked with Tony even more over the years, a lot from him, is he never stopped learning.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like, you know, he's my mentor. He always will be. But he had the posture of a student. He had the posture, and so that's I want to in everything, you know, whether it's music or acting or whatever, I want to have that posture. And so I'm coming back. I feel like as a student, I'm going to learn things from all the people I work with, and you know, and I'm very thankful, you know, to Tony and Jeannie for kind of instilling that in me at a young age,
It's awesome.
to just to keep it, you know, keep it hopefully alive, you know.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, lucky us. Oh, hey.
There you go. I think I used that already, but nice try. Damn. So, Johnny, where can they find you on Instagram just so they can catch you with everything you're doing?
On Instagram, I think it ends in HQ, which stands for headquarters. So I think that's it. I don't know, man. You know me in social media. I think it's Jonathan Jackson HQ.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
It has the blue check. It has the blue check.
Well, it has the blue check. And yes, please be cognizant of that because there's plenty of that.
Gosh,
and jonathanjackson.com, there's, you know, stuff on the website with, you know, all the books and all the various projects.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I'm
right.
looking forward to it. We're going to have fun.
Thank you both.
We'll be seeing you soon.
Yes, buddy.
Fun catching up.
Awesome.